Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome you here to the dirt track at Charlotte as we prepare for another race here in the RTG Street Stock Series. Getting ready for our first heat of the evening. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Samuel Dyer. And Sam, these drivers, they're getting down close to the end of their season. I believe next week is their season finale. Now, unfortunately, on our end, the point system they use over on Dan Lisa is down. So basically, here tonight, we're not going to be able to tell people about points, but we should be in at least for a good race, and not only here in the street stocks, but later on in the late models.
Yeah, the Charlotte dirt course is really one of the more interesting dirt courses to be seen on the schedule. It's one of the most widest tracks that these drivers are going to have, so a lot of space to be finding that moisture on the track throughout the night. And so you're able to really make that inside line groove work. And then I think later on tonight, we'll see the outside be the most preferred lane. We're going to be seeing a lot of passes throughout the whole entire night with the street stocks and the late models.
Grant Wesley lining up on the point for this first heat alongside of Adam Huggins, Brian Hogue, and Tim DeSchwartz in row 2, and then Michael Massey and Brian Ordo there in row 3. Going to be interesting to watch these drivers here in these heat races because not a whole lot of drivers scheduled to take the green flag in the main event. So, even a 6-car heat, you could probably learn quite a bit about passing your way up through the field if you start 4th, 5th in the main event to get up to the front.
Yeah, it matters on how many drivers actually are going to be showing up here tonight. I believe we had around 11, the possibility of maybe 13 to 14 drivers. But it's going to be pretty much, this is half of our field right now. We're only going to be having 2 heats tonight. So a lot of racing action to be seen for these drivers. Pace truck is off. We're getting ready to go green in our first heat.
Grant Wesley, who we see a lot of times loves the top side, he's going to be on the inside line here for the start of this 8-lap heat as he gets up through the gears. He's going to have the advantage going into the corner. We'll see how long it's going to take for these drivers to migrate up to that middle and outside line.
Yeah, with how big this track is, I think a lot of the drivers are going to be focusing on the middle to bottom groove throughout these heats, and then maybe during the race with how many laps there's going to be, might be seeing more of the drivers moving up on the track. But Grant Wesley, you're already starting to see it. He's sticking in the middle and has a little bit more of a diamond entry. Has a little bit of contact there, and there goes Huggins.
Adam Huggins, I think he was starting to already go around, then got a little help from behind to complete that spin from Tim DeSchwartz. He saw how that car kind of got airborne. There's a bit of an elevation change from the inside of the dirt section to the start of that grass section in the infield.
Yeah, it's about 1 inch or 2, and it's pretty aggressive on these street stocks. It just bumps you up into the air, and all these drivers are going to be making it into the featured race. But right now, you're really challenging to see where you're going to be starting on track, as right now, Grant Wesley is going for the pole, and then everyone else behind them is going to be every other position throughout the row.
You can see visibly there's a difference, the lighter dirt down there, and then you've got that darker strip in about the middle groove of the racetrack. That's where Grant Wesley, as well as Tim DeSchwartz behind him, seem to like to put that right rear. I would have to assume that's where the track is a little bit more saturated, which gives you that better grip.
Yeah, you're starting to see the fact that these drivers are trying to work in that groove. That's the most preferred line, but you're also starting to see a lot of different entries. I talked about how Grant Wesley's entry looked a little bit more of a diamond cut. He's arcing it in so much earlier than everyone else, so his exit off is a lot faster than most of these drivers that are trying to really arc it completely around and not trying to make the apex so much sooner than the rest of everyone else.
3 laps to go, make it 2.5 as Wesley's on the back straightaway. It's a battle of the Bryans back here for 3rd place. Brian Hogue has the spot. Brian Ordo been running a little bit lower there these last couple of laps, trying to close up the gap. He's only about a car length and a half behind.
Yeah, right now watching Hogue's more going for the same entry that Grant Wesley's going for, while Ordo's going with a lot more aggressive entry into the corners, trying to stick on the inside. But with how much Ordo's going on the inside, it's hurting him off exit. The driver that's in the infield just getting on track right now, that's going to be Michael Massey in the 7, who looks like he's going to just park it at the moment.
I think Massey may have actually started this heat from pit road, was running 6th for most of this, and now, as you said, going to just pull it to pit lane to finish this thing out. Was going to probably finish 6th anyway, as off turn 4, Grant Wesley started on point for this heat. He'll be the pole sitter for the main event.
Yeah, and he's pulled away with up to a 1.6 second gap, and that was a major gap to be seen. With the way that Huggins is caught, the way that he spun out, that would have brought a caution for our featured race. But for these heats, there's no yellow flags. It's all about who survives and where you finish.
Now, what's going to be interesting here, we're going to be obviously watching this second heat, but if there's anything to take away from that first heat, It's looking like this is going to be one of those rare dirt tracks where it's going to be very difficult for drivers to pass. I think the only pass that took place on the track there that whole time was drivers going around the spinning Adam Huggins.
Yeah, and it's mainly the fact that it's looking more like a single groove track, and it's going to take about 15 to 20 laps before really everyone else has to start searching for a different lane to find more speed. So that's why these heat races, it doesn't look like there's going to be a lot of passing being made, because that one groove right in the center is where you want to be running if you want to have the fastest run.
5 drivers going to be here in this second heat. It's going to be Steve Robbins lining up on point for this one. So this is basically going to be the battle to see who will start on the outside of the front row. He'll be alongside of Stephen Barreau. Then it's going to be Sean Kerrigan, Terry Bauman in row 2, and Mason Nichols bringing up the rear of this heat. 5 drivers here for 8 laps. So looks like to your point, Tam, it will be 11 drivers officially that will take the green flag. And look at that little extracurricular activity before we even take the green there between the 073 and the 45.
Yeah, you're really not wanting those type of incidences to happen, but sometimes you'll let the other driver know I'm here.
The Robbins and Barreau with similar color schemes there, the white, the black, and the green sported on both of their street stocks, about to have the pace car hit pit road, or the pace truck in this case, and then they'll come around here through 3 and 4 and get ready to go under the green flag. So we saw Grant Wesley migrate up to that middle line. A lot of times I almost think that the driver that starts on the outside of the front row at these dirt tracks has more of an advantage than the driver that actually starts on the pole. We'll have to see that'll be the case here today, as green flag is out for the second heat.
Yeah, and Stephen Robbins able to get right to the inside, trying to get as much, really get away from everyone else. They're 3 wide, back for the 4th place, a little bit of contact there, as Terry Bauman's able to hold on as Kerrigan almost spinning around multiple cars.
Bauman way up the track there as well. Another thing I noticed, and I don't know if it has to do with the street stocks themselves or with this track at Charlotte, but a lot more less slippy and slidey of a dirt track than we've seen here so far this season. A lot of drivers going into the corner, it's almost like the car doesn't want to turn, almost goes straight up for them.
Yeah, it's just due to the fact that these drivers, there's not a lot of speed in these street stocks. It's more of driving a brick at times, where you kind of aren't looking to slide, but a great slide job there is by Nichols in that 55 machine. I think Mason Nichols is kind of a dark horse for me, a driver that can start in the back, but obviously is a top 4 driver. Another 4 contact made, as Braun going to be trying to move up for that 45 machine, and they're still side-by-side battling for second place.
A little bit of contact at a dirt track, really no harm, no foul. Kind of the Robbins racing mentality, is Nichols again trying to get the second spot away from Stephen Barreau. This is all going on now about nearly a second and a half behind Steve Robbins, who's just saying, yeah, you guys keep racing it up. I'll take the outside of the front row.
Yeah, and that's the one thing with sled jobs, because if you're not, when you try to do a slide job in another vehicle, you're losing your momentum off the exit, and it's going to be hurting both the cars if you have to slow down or try to make a crossover move and try to make another slide job the next corner. Now what we're seeing is cars are finally single filed up. They might have a chance to try to run Stephen Robbins down, but Robbins has been quick all season long, and really it looks like Grant Wesley might be the only driver that can keep up with this 073.
Saw right there, I thought that maybe Nichols was going to take control of second place. He still has Barreau right behind him after Barreau got up into the outside wall through 3 and 4. Speaking of in the wall, that was Terry Bauman in the wall there in that 69 machine. Battle for second continues on, and man, Stephen Barreau driving it way in deep into turn 1.
Yeah, that's going to be hurting that 45 machine, losing ground, but those are the type of moves that you kind of have to make here. We're starting to see the track evolve slightly here. The drivers are moving up just a little bit further up from that, where that dark marker that we were seeing Grant Wesley work on. So people are still searching for where the speed is and where's the most grip to try to work yourself around this course.
Yeah, everybody pretty much that's been running up towards the front has been taking that middle groove as Robbins crossed the line to take the checkered flag. So he'll start on the outside of the front row alongside of Grant Wesley. I have to wonder here too, Sam, obviously these drivers here, they're going to have this little bit of a warm-up session to be able to get back used to the track, about 5 minutes for them to do that. But then the track's going to be watered back up. The grip's going to be back there. They're going to be able to use multiple lines. And as the evening progresses on, the track is going to get cooler and cooler as well. Does that maybe bring that lower groove a little bit more into play?
I mean, the cooler course is going to help a little bit with that lower groove where it's going to be helping it out. I think really the drivers that are going to make the outside lane, I think if you can get that to work, you might have a better option than trying to stick on the bottom. The bottom's kind of treacherous to be because there are some turtle shells you kind of have to worry about. If you hit those in any fashion where you're really trying to stay on the limit of the inside groove, you can tap those and you find yourself wrecking in some fashion.
Folks, as we mentioned, this is race 15 of the season for the RTG Street Stock Series. We're going to have the late models momentarily here as well at the dirt track of Charlotte. And this is going to be leading up to the championship weekend, which Flatout Racing Network is going to have coverage of next Friday. So be sure to tune in for that season finale. Again, also, if you're just joining us, Dan Lisa, the program, the website that a lot of iRacing leagues use, has been having some issues, so we are not able to give you the point situation coming into tonight's race. Hopefully that'll all get settled out by next week when we get ready to crown 2 champions.
Yeah, but we still get to see some great racing here today that's going to be setting up and really seeing who's going to have the momentum going into next week. Right now, was looking at practice and the times that were being placed there. Grant Wesley was the fastest during practice, and Tim Dejwart was the car that was the second fastest during practice. Right now, during this warm-up, Tim Dejwart going to be on top of the board. And that 49 machine we didn't see that much during the heats, and really someone to watch out for here during this race.
Yeah, Dejwart, I believe, is going to be rolling off from third because he finished second in the first heat race behind Grant Wesley and Steve Robin. And you mentioned him in the heat, and so I would kind of think we'd have to also look at him here in the main event as well. That 55 of Mason Nichols is maybe a little bit of a sleeper.
Yeah, right now third on the board during this warm-up, and Mason Nichols is someone that might not be the fastest to win the race, but certainly a driver that is capable of a top 3 finish. I think really the battle that's going to be on for this win most likely is going to be between Grant Wesley and Steven Robbins, as both those drivers extremely quick. And honestly, during practice, when we got to see the drivers putting in as fast as laps as they could, that 0.73 was someone that was just about 100th off at times than what Grant Wesley was putting down.
Obviously, we know that with the races we've covered here, that the street stocks, they're a little bit slower, a little bit boxier, a little bit bulkier, so the speeds aren't carried into the corner nearly as fast, gives them a little bit more of an opportunity to maybe make more passes. When we get to the late models, we know they have a lot more speed, so is there anything in these street stocks these drivers are going to be able to apply when they jump into their late model cars in a few moments?
I think the big thing that you can take away is where is the groove that you're going to be seeing the track kind of disappear first? Where is the track going to dry the quickest? Because what you're looking for is moisture on the track. That's where you're going to get that grip that you can really start to get off the corner better. You won't be sliding as much. Yes, this is dirt, and you usually see a lot of machines sliding, but the goal really of dirt racing is kind of trying to keep your car from sliding as much as you can and trying to keep your momentum. So it's a lot of finding where the moisture is, where you can get that grip so you can get off the corner as fast as possible and attack the next corner.
Now, you bring up the point about avoid the sliding as much as possible. However, most of the passing we saw there in that second heat was between the battle with Mason Nichols and Stephen Barra, and it was slide job after slide job. So are we looking at as that being maybe the main way of making a pass here tonight, especially eventually when we get to the end of this race for the win?
It certainly is a way to get it past, but you also saw during that second heat on how much Steven Robbins was able to pull away because the momentum that was lost due to the slide job. So there's an advantage of you gaining one position, but it could cost you from getting another 2 positions because you're losing so much time.
And we know as well that at the dirt tracks, it's really all about rhythm, having yourself in a rhythm. And a lot of times when there's races that have constant yellow flags, takes these drivers, they've told us it takes them quite a while to get back into said rhythm. With 11 drivers in the field here tonight, we've got the extreme likelihood that this race could be completely caution-free. So a lot of these drivers may have to be heading into this race with a mentality that they're not going to have a caution to fall back on if they make a mistake.
I mean, that would be a nice thought if we did go green to the end, but we even saw in that first heat, there was a wreck that happened on the second lap where we saw drivers spinning around. I mean, Huggins was involved in that one. That would have brought out a caution, so for the featured race. And also, we saw a lot of contact being made in our second heat that most likely would have brought out a caution as well. So I think the possibility of us going green all the way, we hope that it's like that, but most likely we might be seeing at least a handful of cautions just because the aggression level is going to ramp up throughout this race.
We're going to have to wait and see. Our top 4 on the starting grid were our top 4 there in this warm-up. Wesley was the fastest, Deshwart was second, followed by, I believe it was Robbins in third and Nichols in fourth. And those are the four drivers that are going to be starting in the first two rows for this race. So the fast drivers are starting up at the front. We're going to have to see how they're going to settle it out amongst each other here in this 50-lap main event feature.
50 laps, excited to see how these drivers are going to go. There's a lot of space on this course, but you're all looking for the middle lane, it looks like, for at least these first 15 to 20 laps. And then we'll start to see the drivers differing, who's going to be running close to the wall and who's going to be trying to drive close to these tires that are on the inside.
Yeah, I didn't get much of an opportunity to observe these drivers in practice. Is up against the wall, is that a lane that's viable that these drivers would be willing to migrate up to?
I think they're going to be about a lane off of that middle groove, so not completely on the wall, but about a half a lane off the wall might be where these cars could be at the end of this race. But it's more if you want to stay close to the middle as much as possible. You might have to drift up. Some drivers are going to be thinking about drifting down, but that middle groove is going to be the best place to be for at least the first half of this race.
Yeah, for Grant Wesley, the idea is going to be very clear. That's get out in front and control the lane that you want to be and force everybody else to do something different. And why this makes it a little bit difficult in terms of me trying to figure out who might be that driver that would go way up there and try and run that extreme outside line is because it would end up being Grant Wesley if he was starting second place on back. But since he's out in front, I doubt that being in the race lead, he would go up there and run that risk.
Yeah, but since you're in the lead, you can get on the throttle much quicker, and you can find yourself getting ahead of the cars that are in second place and further back, and which will allow you to have that entry that you want. Move up as fast as possible, and then arc the way you want into these first couple of corners. So it's going to give an opportunity to Grant Wesley. It's all about how well he can get on these restarts, because really he's hoping to get ahead. This thing stays green and no one else can catch him, but it's that middle of the field. We got to watch out who's going to get a run and who's going to be stalled out and might bring out an accident here.
Again, folks, we apologize for not being able to give you the point situation, but this is the race that's going to set up the championship battle next week, and so we'll see what happens at the end of these 50 laps. The green flag is in the air at Charlotte.
And Stephen Robbins able to stay right on the bumper of the 88, not allowing him to come up at all, but it's not enough as Grant Wesley already pulling away and going all the way up to the high side. Looks like that's going to be the 45 machine drifting back.
Yeah, Stephen Barra way up to that third line. He started, I believe, sixth. He's now back to ninth as the battle for the lead is on. Steve Robbins to the inside of Wesley going into three.
You're talking about how slide job is most likely the best opportunity to make a pass, and we might see it here. Stephen Robbins, he's right. Side by side has an opportunity, but Grant Wesley comes down, pinches the 073, not allowing him to really do a slide job just yet, as they're still side by side across the line.
And we were nearly three wide behind them there with Nichols, DeSchwart, and Hogue. They now settle that out to a side-by-side battle for third. Now it looks like Nichols will hold the spot. DeSchwart tucks in line. Robbins going to have to tuck in line behind the 88. Wesley clear for the lead for the moment.
Yeah, right now Wesley feeling good, but really not able to pull away like he did during the race. Contact for second place, though. Nichols as well as Robin. Robin goes around. Oh, hard contact, and others behind.
And I believe Steve Robbins, it was hard to tell if it was, oh, there's a car flipping. That's Huggins. Terry Bauman's all torn up. Another car upside down. I think that's the 45 of Stephen Barra.
And huge implications for these drivers. Luckily, there's still a fast repair for them to use, but you do not want to tow, and that's exactly what both those drivers are going to have to use.
Wow, right out of the gate, we were just about to complete the third lap of the day, and two cars flipping upside down. I was going to mention there about Steve Robbins as well. We'll look at the replay and get an idea, but I mentioned that elevation change from the inside of the infield grass to the racing surface itself. But he was awfully close to maybe hitting one of those tires down there in the infield as well.
Well, what all started this was the fact that Robin thought he was clear to come up, but he wasn't, which then pinched him up into the wall and then spun him around initially, and then Robin got into the wall, and the flip was massive. There were actually three cars that almost went flipping there, and just massive carnage for a lot of these drivers. Terry Blauman, lucky he was not one of the two vehicles that was flipping there at the end.
And I was correct. It was the, I believe, right rear of Steve Robbins that hit one of those tires down there. And those tires don't move. You hit them, it's almost like hitting a sphere of concrete.
Yeah, it is an unmovable object in iRacing. So like you said, if you hit it, you are coming to a dead stop. If not, it's going to flip you over because of how hard you're going to hit that. And a lot of damage can ensue from that, which Terry Blauman going to be coming in using his fast repair. Like I said, all these drivers have one fast repair to work with. The issue is is that the 45 and the 16, both of them, because they were flipped over and on their roofs, they had to be towed to pit road. They're going to be multiple laps down once we go green.
Boy, there you see the shot, Terry Bauman, as well as Stephen Barreau coming in there, hitting the 16. The 45 goes over as well, and these were drivers that were trying to avoid the spinning Brian Hogue number 14 machine.
Green flag back out in the air for these drivers. Grant Wesley, a great launch for himself. And a new driver going to be peeking up into our top 4, as that is going to be Brian Ordo in the 71, who's putting his nose on the outside.
Now, Ordo started this race from the 5th position. He's got DeSchwart there now to his inside. Just up ahead of them, you got Mason Nichols in that 55. You got to wonder how much damage Nichols sustained when he got squeezed up into the outside wall, courtesy of the 073 of Steve Robin. But looks like he, for the moment, is still up to speed. And we saw him be able to peek his nose to the outside of Robin, got that run off the corner. Looks like that 55 is pretty good on the top side.
Yeah, he got squeezed up into the wall, but these street stocks are so durable. You can put it into the wall, you can have a ton of front end damage and be super crinkled up and still be running just as fast as you were when you had a fresh, clean car. So really, I'm not surprised that Mason Nichols is able to still be running as hard as he is, and he's starting to run down Grant Wesley. He's inching closer and closer every corner. This 55 machine might have an opportunity here in the next 3 laps.
Mentioned how Grant Wesley is one of those drivers that seems to really like the top. On the flip side, Timothy DeSchwartz, he's one of the drivers that really likes to migrate around the shortest way of the track down that inside line. It's not going to pan out for him here, as Ordo will clear him for the 3rd position. DeSchwartz right now in 4th, trying to hold off Michael Massey, who's up there in 5th, has been able to make his way through the early carnage. That was a driver that parked before his heat was even over.
Yeah, Michael Massey at the moment, he is you talk about a car that's trying to work that inside line. I think he was the one that was staying there for a while here, understanding he might have been losing some ground, so moving back up to the center groove. Ordo's now going to be trying. Grant Wesley throws it down into the bottom lane, trying something different, trying to find some speed, recognizing that Nichols is coming in that 55 machine.
Mason Nichols, if I recall correctly, he is not in the hunt for the championship, so he's out here just trying to pick up a win. I think that the drivers, if my memory serves me correctly, the drivers that are in that championship battle are actually Timothy DeSchwartz and Steve Robin. I would have to, obviously double check when Dan Leitz is back up, but to my knowledge, I think those are the drivers that are currently in that championship hunt.
Yeah, I believe 3rd might have been Grant Wesley, if my memory is correct as well. It was between those 3 drivers for most of the season. And right now, Grant Wesley trying to help himself as he continues to stay up front, and I think he might have found something because he's starting to move away. Brian Ordo, though, went all the way to the bottom, almost clobbering one of the tires.
And he rode it way up the track there as well, out of turn 2, so getting up into the wall, that not only loses him momentum, but that also brings Steve Robbins and Michael Massey into the picture.
Yeah, and Robin able to make the pass on Massey and then kind of got stalled out because Ordo coming back up into the 073. So now Robin got to reset, same with Ordo, and try to get back into that rhythm we were talking about right before this featured race started. And these drivers coming to lap 15, this is when the track is going to start to evolve a little bit more for the next 5 laps and searching for new spots. And that's why we're starting to see a lot more drivers drifting up besides staying in that middle groove.
We saw Mason Nichols was starting to close up the gap right up the bumper of Grant Wesley. Wesley has now been able to kind of stall out that momentum, holds it about 4/10, maybe half a second between himself and the 55, running down there lower on the track. So he has found something for the moment to keep that 55 at bay.
Yeah, but right now, Nichols has found a way to get that car a little bit snugger on the high side. Beside Wesley looks like he is struggling through 1 and 2 just a little bit here, while Nichols has found something. It's through 3 and 4 where we're seeing the complete opposite of these drivers. Nichols stays on the high side. Grant Wesley throws it all the way to the bottom, trying to carry as much momentum and kind of block it away, and he stays high. And this is where Nichols has been doing so well, is staying up high. Now he's going to be right on the bumper. Yeah,
Nichols has had a couple more laps to be able to find out what the outside line can do. That's what's allowing him to kind of get in the head of Grant Wesley, and he is almost into his bumper. He is into his bumper off of turn 2.
Here comes that slide job we were talking about back at heat number 2. Here he comes with crossover move set up for Grant Wesley coming through the straightaway.
Oh, Wesley's going to get back to his inside, though. What Nichols needed to have happen there was he pull up right in front of Wesley's front bumper and kind of stall his momentum for a crossover. Here comes Nichols back to the bottom. These two duking it out back and forth.
Yeah, now this is going to be bringing in the 49 of Tim DeSchwart. DeSchwart's going to be loving this because the more that they continue to cross over back and forth, the more they're losing time and the more it's going to allow the drivers behind them to start catching up.
Wesley now with the slide job into turn 1. Nichols crosses over to the inside. Neither one of these drivers been able to get enough momentum to clear. Whoa! Nearly got wrecked right there. There's Nichols. He tried to block Wesley's attempt for the slide job.
And coming off the corner, it's going to be Nichols. Looking very strong at the moment. Lap traffic might be an issue. Here's Grant Wesley comes up, almost contact again, and DeSchwart is coming with a head of steam now.
Wesley got into Nichols, puts him up into the wall. As you mentioned, here comes the 49 into the picture of Tim DeSchwart. And if these three continue to race, that's going to bring Brian Ordo and Steve Robbins, the top 5, all under a blanket momentarily.
Steve Robbins been stuck in 5th place for a while now, trying to figure out how to get by Ordo, and he might found something with everyone starting to get clogged up now. But like I said, lap traffic could be a factor for these drivers because lap traffic is not going to want to run that middle groove. They got to pick a lane, and it's going to be in front of one of our 2 leaders.
And this right now might be an important battle for the race lead because it could end up eventually being the battle for the race win because with all these different drivers running these different lines with searching, there's not going to be nearly as many options to find grip when we get closer to the end of this race.
I talked about how drivers are going to be liking the inside, some are going to be liking the outside. It's going to be Grant Wesley who has really found something on the inside groove because he continuously is holding his spot with half a second lead or gaining a little bit. It's looking like it might be Mason Nichols that might have lost momentum and still searching on the high side where he had speed previously. It looks like it might have disappeared.
And all of a sudden, Tim DeSchwart, who I mentioned always seems to like the inside line, he's migrated up to the top. And I mean, what a difference, the longevity of the race as opposed to the heat makes. We saw about, what, 2.5 grooves of dark dirt up there on the top side during the heats. Nobody went up there. Now we've only got maybe a groove of dark dirt up there on the top side.
Yeah, and they're going to be trying to climb higher and higher and try to make a banking up on that high groove. And right now it is a struggle for some of these drivers to find that speed. As right now, Grant Wesley, he continues to start pulling away. It was a half a second, now it's up to 0.6 seconds. It's a 10th up, and it's continuing to grow every single lap.
And right now you've got that traffic ahead you talked about. That is 45 of Stephen Barra, who currently is already 1 lap down, does not want to fall another lap down to the race leader, especially with the fact that we could maybe go green to the end, as now Wesley trying to figure out where that 45 is going to go. Looks like Barra's going to take the top. That's going to force Wesley to choose the inside line, and if he gets around him, then what does Mason Nichols do?
Well, Mason Nichols, he, like you're seeing right now, he's got to duck into the inside, recognizing the fact that the 45 machine is going to stay high, so got to search somewhere else, find that speed. Where is it going to be at? Dropping back to this battle for 4th place for a second. Right now, Ordo's trying to make that inside work as well, while Steven Robbins, he's staying on the outside trying to make that thing work, but he is losing ground to our front 3.
And you have to wonder how many drivers here, I think you said only 1, came down pit road to take on the only faster pair these drivers have at their disposal, and that was Terry Bauman. Now, for some of these other drivers that may have sustained a little bit of damage from the wreck we had earlier on, you got to wonder if that damage is affecting them just a little bit.
I mean, there might be a slight effect, but I don't think it's going to be hurting them as much as we think. I think it's just the fact that these drivers are searching. The track has been worn down so much. After about 20 to 25 laps, there's really not that much space to find speed. You really have to be searching and be kind of reckless and fearless on where you're going to be putting your car and hope that it sticks and you find speed that the other drivers don't have. And right now you're seeing a lot of searching from a lot of these drivers as they're searching to the bottom, to the high side. Where is this grip so they can finally get that launch off the back stretch or front stretch?
Well, Stephen Barra didn't play much of a factor in closing up the battle for the lead, but he did play a factor into closing up the battle for 2nd place, because Tim DeSchwart has now got about maybe 3.5, 4 car lengths between himself and Mason Nichols. It was about 7, 8 car lengths before they got to the 45 machine.
Yeah, you're starting to see Nichols is feeling comfortable on the high side, but that's not where the speed is at. It's now he's got to throw it to the inside where Schwartz been running, and he's been having a lot of good speed. A lot of these drivers could try a different factor of trying to arc it in a little bit higher and trying to hug on the inside like we're seeing Schwartz do. Try to get onto almost the grass to try to find some grip to get that launch through the straightaways. And right now, I think Timothy Schwartz felt like there was some speed there, but decided to outside through 3 and 4 to see if there's anything up there. But right now, it's a struggle, and we're starting to see drivers back in 4th place starting to run these drivers down.
And Brian Ordo now trying to get himself around the lap machine of Stephen Barras. Steve Robin right behind him. Michael Massey still in the conversation there as well. That three-way battle for spots just inside of the top 5. And we saw DeSchwart running way down there on the bottom. Ordo's down there on the bottom. We talked already about those tires down there in the infield. When you're running that inside line, you've got to be careful. You kind of want to just be right on the razor's edge of where the racetrack ends and the infield begins. But you go down too low, that tire is there waiting for you.
Yeah, that's the major risk that the drivers are going to have to deal with. And also, if they make contact with the tires, it could bring out a caution for everyone here as we're inching closer and closer to 10 laps to go. The opportunity to make any type of pass is kind of drifting away for some of these drivers. Speaking of tires, I think Michael Massey might have clobbered one because that 7 machine just came to a dead stop.
Oh, yeah, look at the damage there on the left front of his machine. I think you're right. I think he definitely got one of those tires there. We'll go back and see if that was indeed the case.
As up front, they're still battling on as we're looking at this replay of what happened to Michael Massey.
Yeah, he got one flush with the left front of his machine. Watch this going down here into turn 3. Oh, it's almost like the thing just would not turn back to the right, like the counter steer wasn't even happening there going into the entrance of the corner.
Yeah, and that's the main thing, is that he came in at such an odd angle. I just saw it off my screen of the 7 just full sending it to the corner, and it really wasn't an arc to try to come in the corner. It was almost a dead straight to the tire. And you know, when you're at these dirt races, you're looking to try to arc in, get as close to the wall before you turn to try to help your car out the best that you can. And it just did not happen there for Michael Massey. As drivers up front, it looks like Mason Nichols, he's trying to figure out some new speed because he was over a second behind Grant Wesley for a second there. It's down to 0.6 seconds, and I think that 55 machine might have found something on that high line as he is slowly chipping away now.
Gap has definitely closed up. Looks like they're catching up to the 15 of Sean Kerrigan, who right now is the last car on the lead lap, holding down the 9th position. And going back to a point that you made about how durable these street stocks are, Sam, right now Michael Massey, that whole left front is completely ripped and mangled. He's still holding down the 7th position. If it were really any other kind of car, more than likely we would have seen black smoke trailing out from underneath that driver. With that impact is all right there on board with Nichols. Got a little too high there out of turn 4.
Yeah, and it kind of rubbed on the wall, but it's not hurting him too much, as right now Grant Wesley did not get the launch that he wanted, and this lap traffic might have been throwing off Grant Wesley because now he's not able to run the lane that he wants. He's stuck on the high side, and we're about to see some contact, and will we see the 15 actually drift up as, you know, he drops to the bottom to let our leaders go.
Well, we know that Mason Nichols and Grant Wesley had a great battle when the two of them were in close proximity about 20 laps ago. Crossover after crossover after crossover. It's now about a car length and a half between the two here. Both of them right up against the wall on that extreme outside line. We'll see if the 55's close enough, if he'll go back to trying the slide job again.
Also, there's going to be a battle back for that 3rd place position where Ordo is also closed up onto Schwartz, and it looks like Schwartz starting to drift back. Might have just losing where the speed is as he's continuing to drop back. But up front, Grant Wesley, he's under pressure. But the best thing for him is the fact that we haven't seen Nichols been able to gain as much as he was before. He's staying around 4/10, and he needs to get a little bit closer, if not try to bump this 88 machine out of the way if possible. But he's running out of time.
Yeah, it's so amazing the difference between racing at an asphalt track and racing at a dirt track, because when we talk about wear at an asphalt track, we're always talking about the tires. But the dirt does not affect the tires here. When we talk about wear, we're talking about the track itself, in the track getting rubbered in with these drivers running consistent laps in either the upper, middle, or lower groove, and then seeing where drivers try and search for the wetter part of the racetrack for that grip.
Man, Nichols got into the wall hard and got it. That 55 machine squirrely, losing about a tenth. And it's a factor I was about to bring up is the fact that these drivers, the way that they are trying to search for a group, for any type of grip, they're so close to the outside wall that might be finding some drivers wall riding like the lap traffic in front of our leaders. They got to be careful, and they got to make sure they get out of the way as we're coming to less than 2 laps to go.
Sam, I know you've done a lot of dirt racing. I've done a little bit, and I know you can attest to this. When you're that car that's trying to run down the machine in front of you, that's usually when you make those kind of mistakes, because it's not as easy to be able to make a pass at a dirt track as it is at maybe an asphalt mile and a half track, even if you have a faster race car, because the driver in front of you has the preferred line, and that's maybe why Nichols is making these mistakes.
He's trying everything he can, white flag in the air, but Nichols is just too far back with lap traffic in the way. There's just no type of move that can be made because he's got to get around the lap traffic. Not able to do so. Grant Wesley winning here at the Charlotte Dirt Track.
Goes coast to coast here tonight in the street stocks. Pole to win, also won his heat that got him on the first starting position. And Grant Wesley going to get to, well, burn it down, if you will, here. Don't know if you can really do a burnout on a dirt track, but Grant Wesley going to get to celebrate in victory lane here this evening, and we'll see now if he can go for the double-double and maybe sweep here at Charlotte with the late models later on.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the late models later on, we're going to be seeing the drivers really working that outside groove a little bit more, and the slide jobs are going to be a lot more aggressive to be seen. But still today, I mean, what a race it was. We got to see all of our top 3 running close proximity to one another for most of that race for the first half, and then it just became a battle between the 88 and the 55. And Grant Wesley, he just proved he had the fastest car and was able to find that speed and where the grip was faster than the rest of the field.
Nichols going to finish second with the Schwartz in third, Ordo fourth, and Steve Robbins in fifth. The rest of the drivers finished on the lead lap were Brian Hogue and Michael Massey. Terry Ballman just barely finished a lap down there in the closing stages of this race. Sean Garrigan also a lap down. Adam Huggins, who had to teleport to pit road, involved in the only caution when he was flipped over, will finish in 10th. And then behind him, finishing out the rest of the field, is going to be the 45 of Stephen Barreau. He's going to finish in 11th place, 2 laps down to the race leader. But 50 laps, only 1 caution for these drivers here tonight. And then green flag pretty much from lap 10 onward.
Yeah, and most of these drivers, they just had to stay where they were at. I think for most of this race, they were kind of stuck. Steven Robbins had to work his way up through a little bit of traffic to get himself up to 5th place. Almost was able to make some passes on Ordo, but Ordo stayed strong and proved that, hey, it's a lot of work to pass another car, especially when there's a lack of grip on the track. The first about 15 to 20 laps, there's a lot of grip out there on the track. You could try to make as many aggressive moves as possible, but then after that, it's a lot of just searching for speed and hoping that the car in front of you doesn't move up into your lane, because then you have to start searching again for where there might be a faster spot.
50 laps in the book here for the street stock, so another 50 laps to be run in the late model. Let's go down trackside, get some interviews with our top 3 finishers. Let's kick things off with our 3rd place finisher, Timothy DeSchwart. Hey Tim, it's Sam and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network 2. You got us?
Yeah, I got you.
3rd place run for you here tonight at Charlotte. We saw that you were down there on the bottom in the early stages of this race, a place where we're normally used to seeing you, but then we saw you migrate up there to the top side. How important was it to get the passes done early with the fact that all 3 grooves seemed to kind of get rubbered in near the end?
Yeah, the grooves kind of changed as the race went on, so it was pretty important to get position early. I was running the bottom, and the front 2 just kind of started pulling away, so I moved up top 2, and they just could run it better than I could, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Tim, it was wild to see all these drivers, the way they were searching for grip. Did you find that it was helpful to get that information here for the street stocks for later on in late models?
Oh, sure. Any laps you get always help. Build your confidence for racing on a slick track, so we'll see what happens in the next race.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to it. Well, congratulations there, Tim, on a 3rd place run here this evening. We're going to turn the mic over to you. Thank you, sponsors. Shout-outs you'd like to do?
Yep, I'd like to thank RTG, Grant, Terry, Brian Hogue, Brian Orto, obviously you guys for putting on the race. You guys do a good job, and we had a good, clean race tonight, so hopefully we can pull that over to the next one.
That's Tim DeSchwart, brings home 3rd place here in the street stocks. Once again, congratulations, and we look forward to seeing what you do in the late models momentarily.
All right, appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
And now let's get 2nd place finisher Mason Nichols. Hey Mason, it's Sam and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us, man?
Yes, sir. How's it going, guys?
Going good for us, man. Let's go to the beginning of this race there around lap 20. You and the 88 back and forth, slide job after slide job, crossover after crossover. It was a lot of fun to watch up here in the commentator's stand. What was it like down there in the cockpit of that 55?
Man, I knew going into this he was going to be real bad fast, so we was going to do all we could as early as we could, try to get us a good spot, and we had a good time. It was tough competition with these guys, and we just given them all we had for sure.
Yeah, Mason, we saw that you were closing up on Grant there with about 5 laps to go, and then lap traffic started to show up in front of you. Was that lap traffic in any way affecting you? Because it seemed like it was slowing you down because you were still trying to find that speed.
Yeah, I was having to try to move my line there from my sweet spot I had there and try to find something to get closer to Grant and try to get around him. But, that's part of racing.
Well, Mason, you certainly put on a great show here at the end. Closed up that gap. We thought you might have something for him there at the end, but a great second place run for you here in the street stocks. We look forward to seeing this momentum carry over, see what you can do in the late models momentarily, but we're going to turn the microphone over to you. I'd like to do some shout-outs now.
All right, I just want to tell everybody I appreciate you letting me run this league. We've had a lot of fun with these guys. We don't get to run every week, but we try to do as much as we can, and we just have a great time, y'all, and appreciate y'all doing the broadcast.
All right, it's Mason Nichols. He finishes second place here at Charlotte in the street stocks. He hopes to finish one position better momentarily in the late models. Congrats on a great run there, Mason, and good luck in the upcoming race.
Thanks, guys.
And down to victory lane we go. Grant Wesley going to celebrate here with the street stocks. We'll find out if he's thinking about going for the sweep. Hey, Grant, it's Sam and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Hey guys, starting to make a habit out of this.
Yeah, absolutely, man. A great run for you here tonight. You won your heat. You started on the pole position, but it didn't really look like it was a walk in the park for you, though. You had some competition there behind you, and we saw even the race leader had to do some searching.
Oh man, that dang Mason. He's always real good whenever we get a heavy cushion. He really knows how to get up there and optimize that speed coming off the corners. And I knew he was going to be a handful tonight. We started the race out. I knew the bottom was going to be fast right out of the gate, so I was kind of running the bottom, and I was trying to build up that same cushion I had in the heat race right there in the middle. I figured maybe that might be the sweet spot. I might be able to ride that out to the end, and that certainly was not the case. I ran the bottom early. It was working good, and then I moved up, and I thought I was doing good, and then here comes Mason. And we were both kind of fighting over the same territory, doing sliders back and forth, and that was a lot of fun. And then I decided, well, heck, you're always looking around for moisture, and it's like, man, that bottom wasn't really too bad when I left it, so I went back down there, and it was working good. And then I was just watching my mirror and watching that F2 and just trying to pay attention to what Mason was doing. That's almost what you have to do to, you're kind of a sitting duck when you're out front. You can't see what's working and what's not. So I seen Mason was coming on the high side, so I knew that top was pretty good. So I moved up there, and frankly, that's where I prefer to be anyways, up next to the wall. And it was fun there at the end.
Yeah, Grant, it was awesome for us to watch that hard race, and we saw both you and Mason making a little bit of contact. With this late models that we're going to be racing later on, the contact looks like it might be affecting those machines a little bit more. Are you nervous of the fact that the driving, everyone's going to be searching for that same groove? It might be bumping as well.
Yeah, those late models, you definitely have to take care of them and keep that, especially on this track, keep that spoiler in one piece. As soon as you lose that rear spoiler, you kind of lose your grip. But yeah, I think it's going to be much of the same story with them. I think iRacing just did an update. I know they kind of changed some things around with the dirt a little bit. So I think it's kind of a new learning curve for everybody, trying to figure out where the moisture is going to be and what's going to be fast.
We said the spoiler word. That's going to be interesting to watch here in that late model race. But Grant, congratulations on the victory here with the street stocks. We look forward to seeing if you can complete the weekend sweep here at Charlotte momentarily when you climb into your late model. But we're going to let you do some shout-outs now.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the owners here at RTG, Terry Bauman, Sean Prime, and David Cannon. I'd like to thank you guys for doing the broadcast tonight. I'd like to thank my fellow admins, Brian Hogue and Brian Ordo, and my teammates at XFM.
That's Grant Wesley. He's 1 for 1 so far here tonight in the RTG Street Stock Series. We'll look forward to seeing what he can do in the late models momentarily. Once again, congratulations on the victory, Grant, and maybe we'll talk to you in Victory Lane again in just a little while.
Hope so. Thanks, guys.
All right, so we're going to be getting ourselves situated over there as the drivers are getting ready to climb into those late model machines for another 50 laps of racing. But Sam, I mean, just based on what we heard here from some of these drivers post-race, takeaways getting into that late model race?
I mean, from what we saw, the track just evolved so much from once we got hit that halfway marker to the end of the race. I mean, all the drivers were searching for some type of grip for that moisture, and it looked like a struggle. And especially with the fact that the street stocks, they're a little bit smaller than what the late models are going to be. So you got bigger cars, faster cars to be dealing with, and going to be searching for a lot of that grip later on in the race. It's going to be a lot more chaotic, but excited to see these heat races because the heat races are going to show us what those first about 15 to 20 laps are going to look like.
Absolutely is. So stay tuned, folks. We've got 50 laps in the book here for the street stocks with Grant Wesley going to victory lane. Another 50 laps on tap here with the late models here at the Charlotte Dirt Track. We'll be back momentarily here. You're watching coverage of the RTG Dirt Racing Series on Flatout Racing Network. And we welcome you, everybody, here to the 15th race of the season for the RTG Late Model Series, getting ready for the first of at least 2 heat races here for the 50-lap main event, as we're getting set here for the first heat, which will have Steve Spies line up on the pole position, new name that we haven't seen before here on the RTG circuit, be alongside of our Street Stock winner moments ago, Grant Wesley, Sean Kerrigan, Tim DeSchwartz in row 2, Bo Oldfield, another new name here, going to roll off 5th with Scott Monksgaard and Adam Huggins completing the rest of this heat's field. And it looks like we're going to have about roughly 13, 14 drivers take the green flag in this one, Sam. So new faces in the field. What do we see? Do they maybe make some challenges up here with guys like Grant Wesley, Tim DeSchwartz, and Nichols that we saw in the Street Stock race?
I mean, this is a good field to be testing out how you're going to be stacking up. I mean, we've got both Grant Wesley and Schwartz. Both of them we know are going to be quick, and they're going to be both on the outside. So we'll see how the newcomers can find themselves with how this field is going to go with Spies as well as Oldfield in this field. And right now, I think Spies is probably in one of the better positions. He's going to get the pole here on Heat 1. Remember, the winner of Heat 1 gets the pole position for the featured race. And we got to see the driver that got the pole most likely was going to win that race, whatever race it was, if it was the heat or the feature that we saw in the street stocks. His first heat in the late models, we'll see how the drivers react. And really, this is a good showing what our first 15 laps of the featured race is going to look like.
Again, folks, if you're just joining us here, this is the penultimate race of the season. A championship gets decided next week. Unfortunately, we don't have the point scenario for you coming into tonight's race, but we're in for a heck of a show as the green flag is out and they're already 3 wide crossing the start-finish line.
And just like that, the 84 Oldfield's automatically just digging it and up to second with everyone scattering.
They are scattering, my gracious me. 4 wide for a brief moment there down the back straightaway as diving it down there to the inside is going to be Bo Oldfield. Tried to get to the inside of Spies, couldn't do it. Wesley on the top side here of Monksgaard. Now he gets the momentum to the center of the corner.
We question the new faces. How are they going to be doing? Well, they're both of them running 1-2. The rest of the field trying to figure out where they're going to be placing themselves. But it's going to be Spies leading the way after getting that pole position for this heat. And it's going to be Oldfield trying to figure out this bottom stretch. And it looked like he had something there for the first couple of laps. Might be already going away on that bottom.
You know, we saw some early contact there, and when we were talking with Grant Wesley after he was in victory lane with the Street Stock race moments ago, he said you've got to preserve that spoiler, otherwise it's going to really affect your handling. You have to wonder if any contact that was made there in the beginning stages of this race affected the spoiler in any way.
Grant Wesley trying to go in for a slide job, but just there wasn't enough space. And watching these drivers, it looks like it's the car that can really arc it and get the apex of their corner faster and can get going. It looks like they get the better exit out. And we were seeing Grant Wesley for a second there, outdoing Oldfield, but like we said, not enough space to try to go for a slide job.
That was something else I was going to touch on as well. Looks like these drivers in these late models able to get off the corner with a little bit more momentum than they were able to in the street stocks. And still, throw a blanket over your top 4, and here comes Oldfield. Oh, he gets the tire! Way too low.
We talked about the fact that the tires were something to watch out for the street stocks, but it's going to be even bigger like you just saw there for Oldfield. These street stocks, I mean, for the street stocks, their bumpers weren't sticking out as much as the late models are, and just like that, a race could be over in a snap of a finger.
Yeah, we kind of describe the front end of these late models almost like a shovel. It will dig into any elevation change, and right there, not only did we have the front of Oldfield get into that elevation change in the infield, but also got the tires, as it's going to be Steven Spies. He's going to be the pole sitter for the main event, as he's going to win heat number 1.
Yeah, Spies did not pull away from the rest of the field, but certainly was doing exactly what he needed to do to get the pole position for a featured race. And if anything, Bo Oldfield showed us what you don't want to do going into this featured race, and that's digging it a little bit too hard. You kind of have to respect this racetrack. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of drivers doing the same exact thing we just saw Oldfield do during the featured race, and honestly, we could be seeing the same thing here in this second heat.
Definitely could. Steve Robbins going to line up on the pole for this one alongside of Brian Ordo, Michael Massey, and Mason Nichols, who was the runner-up finisher of the Street Stock race moments ago. He'll be in row 2. Scott Shroyer, we've seen him here during the course of the season, but we didn't see him in the Street Stock race earlier on tonight, so he'll take to the Charlotte Dirt Track for the first time this evening in 5th. alongside of Terry Bauman, and Brian Hogue's going to complete the rest of this heat. And just to document as well, I'm not sure where he was at the exact time when he was involved in the wreck, but that wreck that we saw there with Oldfield, Tim DeSchwart got a piece of the action as well, finished 5th in that heat as a result, so he'll be starting mid-pack when we get to the main event.
Yeah, I think really for this second heat, the driver that I've got my eye on has to be that 57 of Scott Shorts. He missed out on the street stocks, but during practice here, setting up for the late models before we got the heat started, that 57 machine was one of the fastest cars on track, and excited to see how he can cut his way through. Going to be starting back in 5th place in that 3rd row, so it's going to be a lot of work to get past these 4 drivers.
Well, Steve Robin kind of hoping that lightning strikes twice. He was the winner of the 2nd heat race for the street stock, subsequently started on the outside of the front row for the main event, looking to see if he can also win his heat here in the late models and start 2nd for the 50-lap main event coming up here for the late model series, as he and Brian Ordo are going to be the ones that are going to lead us to green. And you mentioned about Shroyer. He's going to have to do it from that 5th position. Is 8 laps going to be enough time to get up there to the front? We're going to have to wait and see.
Oldfield was able to make a dazzling move in the first corner. We'll see if maybe Short saw the same move and thinks, I can still go 3 wide, maybe 4 wide through 1 and 2. Just got to get the right restart. Get on the gas at the right point, and you can make a bold move here. It's green flag out in the air for heat number 2. Steve Robbins got to back it off for a second, giving Ordo the best chance on the outside.
And remember, we didn't see any caution. Oh, no, Rob got the tire. And he's going to get Massey and Shroyer, and I think he also just clipped, was that Nichols in the 55?
Yeah, and Hogue also got out of shape there and is now going to be taking himself all the way to pit road. So now that 14 machine going to be starting last, but up front it's going to be Hogue and Nichols pulling away.
Well, you said that we might have seen somebody kind of pulling Oldfield here in this second heat. I'm not sure you expected it to be lap 1, turns 1 and 2, but that was the case with the race leader.
Yeah, I thought it maybe was going to be someone else in the middle of the field that might do that move that we just saw Steve Robbins do, but I guess Steve Robbins felt like he needed to defend the inside, just got a little too aggressive, and honestly, these noses, they point out so much more than you would expect, so maybe it was the fact that Stevens just misjudging coming into that tire.
Well, the 3 drivers that were involved in that all here battling for 4th, 5th, and 6th, Shroyer, Massey, and Robin. About 2 seconds ahead of them, he's now got 3rd place. That's Terry Bauman holding down the spot in the Waffle House machine as he got really loose there through 3 and 4. Mason Nichols now up in 2nd, and he's within striking distance, about maybe 3.5 car lengths behind race leader Brian Ordo.
Yeah, the 2 battles that we're going to have to keep our eye out is the battle for 5th place, where you've got Steve Robbins and Michael Massey, and then also the battle for the lead, where you've got Nichols and Ordo battling, but I think there's just not enough time right now. Ordo is doing a great job just hitting his marks, and really with these first couple of laps, if you can find a good place where you're carrying enough speed, it's not as impactful as later in the race when you find where the grip's at.
Mason Nichols tried the inside line there through 3 and 4, back down to the bottom again in 1 and 2. You see him close up the gap a little bit now, maybe about 2.5 car length separation between himself and that 71 as they come around for the white. Nichols, got off turn 4, just a little too slow. I'm not sure he's going to have a shot here at Ordo unless he gets a really good 1 and 2.
Yeah, he's just bogging down right now in that 55 machine. He's trying to figure out where to throw it in and carry the most momentum. But right now through 3 and 4, just not good enough. It's going to be Ordo crossing the line, winning heat number 2. Going to be starting on the outside of row number 1.
Brian Ordo picks up a heat win here tonight. We'll see how that translates when we get to that 50-lap main event, which is going to be run in about 5 minutes' time. These drivers now going to get a chance to go out there for warm-up, get reacquainted with the track being moistured back up, try and find out which are going to be the lanes to use, but I guess we'll start with the first storyline that kind of jumped out at the forefront. These drivers trying to drive it even deeper into the corner, and the tires are coming into play a lot more than they did in the street stock race.
Yeah, and really, it's the fact that the drivers, these machines, they turn a lot better than what we were seeing in the street stocks. They were a lot more of a brick, while these machines, you really can turn it and get your car sideways. And also, you got to be worrying about the speed. You carry so much more momentum that it's hard to get the reaction time to try to avoid the tires if you come in at the wrong angle. So you got to hit your markers on entry, and if you come in a little bit too quick, you find yourself being out of the way.
You know, this is one of the situations where it is a little bit, it kind of hurts to not know what the point situation is, because you look at drivers coming into this race that are fast, Shroyer, Oldfield. We got Steve Spies starting there up there on the pole position. You mentioned it. Drivers coming in at the end of the season, kind of testing the waters, seeing if this is a league that they'll want to run full-time in the following season. And they can play a huge factor if they end up winning races near the end of the season into that championship battle.
Yeah, and also we get to see what the drivers are going to be like trying to cut their way through traffic. I mean, Shroyer, Oldfield, they did not get the best, really, finishes they wanted on their heats, so it's going to be putting them in the middle of the field as well as all the way in the back of the field for both those drivers. So honestly, it is going to be a test to figure out how much effort they're going to have to be able to battle their way forward, because it's going to be a tall order. We saw how hard it was to make passes in the street stocks. I think Oldfield might have the best opportunity just because of the launch that he got in the power move he made in that first heat. It was just the tire that absolutely took out his chances of going for the win and put him back in last place.
Now, we saw back in the street stock race, obviously these cars drive a lot differently, but back in the street stock race, when we saw Mason Nichols go up there to the outside line first, before Grant Wesley did, he made up a lot of ground. Then when Wesley moved up, Nichols had to find something else. Do you think it's going to be that same situation? The first driver that finds that grip up there on the top side on the long run is going to be the one that's going to be up there making the best forward progress? Oh, actually, we just had Sam step aside for a minute, but yeah, well, we're going to have to wait and see if that's going to be the case here. And Grant Wesley talked about the fact that if you go up there and get the wall and you have damage to the spoiler, it's going to affect the way that car drives for the rest of this race. So it's kind of the risk-reward situation for these drivers when they eventually are going to maybe have their hands forced of going up there to that outside line to try and find some grip, try and find some moisture, and subsequently try and find some speed. We only had one caution in the street stock race. That was in the very early stages, and then went green to the end. We'll see what these drivers are going to do here in the late models. And if we base anything off of what we saw there in those heat races, it is going to be pandemonium, especially in the early portions of this main event race. And we'll see if they then settle things out. But I was watching a lot of these guys in that heat race. A lot of them looked like they were a little bit more unsteady, especially through the center of the corner. And obviously these cars slip and slide a lot more, as opposed to some of the times when we saw the street stocks almost look like they were going straight up into the entrance of turns 1 and 3. Got about a minute and 20 seconds left here before these drivers will head out there onto the tracks. And we saw traffic come into play there. Drivers on the tail end of the lead lap down machines come into play in the street stock race. It's a bigger field here than what we had in the street stock race as well. So do we see traffic come into play in the closing stages of this one?
I think so. I think once we get more into a run and everyone gets into their rhythm, we could be seeing drivers in the back half of the field that are running a little bit slower get lapped down. And with the fact that these cars are going to be so much bigger than what the street stocks are, they're going to be causing a little bit more chaos with how much more space they cover. And they got to make sure they can figure out how to get out of the way. But I think the biggest thing for these drivers is we might be seeing a lot more cautions for these drivers here tonight for the late models, just because of how much we saw contact with the tires and also contact between each other. The fact that they're going to be trying to make a lot more bolder moves with the faster vehicles.
Absolutely. Well, folks, we want to remind you that next Friday evening we're going to be bringing you the season finale for both the RTG Street Stocks and the RTG Dirt late models here. We'll be crowning 2 respective champions. These are the races that are setting the table for those respective championship battles. Grant Wesley's already taken a checkered flag here tonight in the street stock race, and we asked him if he was going to be able to go for the sweep. This is going to be another race where he's going to have to work for it, but different scenario. Before, he was having to work for it, holding off Mason Nichols' challenge. Now he's going to have to drive his way past a couple of fast machines.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of more harder work for these drivers. And also we're going to be seeing, like we stated, newer drivers here. Let's see what Bo Oldfield has, because Oldfield, we saw in heat number 1, made a very aggressive move, went 3-4 wide to try to get himself into second place before he ultimately ran into the tires. And then also for Steve Robbins, another driver that ran into the tires in the second heat. We didn't really get to see what that 073 machine had speed-wise, but we know that Robbins can be quick in these late model machines.
Well, I believe Steve Robbins, to your point, was actually the fastest in that 5-minute warm-up. So we definitely know he's got a fast machine. He just obviously wasn't able to have the good starting track position to show it off here on the grid after getting into the tires down in turn 1 on the first lap of his heat. So 50 laps of racing here for these drivers, and you mentioned about the fact of maybe seeing more cautions. I think only one driver used a fast repair back in the street stock race. So you're saying we're going to probably see a couple more drivers than that use a fast repair in this late model race.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to be a lot more drivers going to have to do that. Also, update for start of this race. It looks like Michael Massey has disconnected, so we'll have to start on pit road if he comes back into the server. And also, Terry Bauman is going to be starting at the end of the field, hit with an EOL to start the race off.
So 13 drivers will officially take the green flag here for this 50-lap main event under the lights at the Charlotte Dirt Track. Steve Spies. First time we've seen him here this season. He looked really good in his heat, looked fast in practice and in warm-up, and he's going to be the one to lead us to green. So let's see what he's going to be able to do here with Brian Orto to his outside, Grant Wesley behind him in third, and kitty corner behind him, the 55 of Mason Nichols. Your first and second place finishers from the street stock race are lining up in that second row.
Spies waiting for the green flag to be waving, and green flag out in the air for this 50-lap featured race here at the Charlotte Dirt Track. Excited to see where drivers are going to be going, as they already are starting to fan out as drivers almost contact between Orto and Wesley as they continue on. As cars in the center, a little bit scattered, but they're 3 wide, still battling on. Stuck on the outside, it's not looking good for some of these drivers.
Talk about battle. That is what Mason Nichols is doing with the wheel of his 55. He's been up there in that third groove, both in 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 in the first lap, fighting that race car, trying to get it to go the right direction.
I think right now, with the way that some of these drivers are really trying to get a handful of these machines, because they're not looking very smooth through the corners. It's a lot of trying to keep the smoothness going. As right now, looking at the drivers, is that Brian Orto is going to get into the wall, losing positions and a lot of momentum, but contact in the back half of the field, as it looks like that might have been the 15 and Kerrigan up in the wall. No, that was Huggins that gets out of shape, teleporting it into the pit road.
And I think he got the 69 of Terry Bauman smoking there, coming down into the infield. No caution, however, came out for that.
Yeah, I think Bauman might have hit a tire, and that
Oh,
was
we got more
carnage.
contact right there.
More cars being scattered. We stay green, though, as cars are able to get going and straight. Believe that was Stephen Robbins that had that issue. Got spun around as yellow flag now being thrown.
Caution is going to come out for the first time here on lap number 5. I think a couple of other drivers that might have been in that vicinity. Tim DeSchwart in the 49 might have gotten a piece of that incident over there in 3. Brian Hogue, I think he or Bo Ofield might have also been in the vicinity. Don't know if they got pieces of it, but caution is going to come out, and it's not going to come out, though, in time for Terry Bauman or Adam Huggins. Bauman's on pit road getting damage repaired. Huggins has disconnected from the server.
Yeah, Huggins is the night that he was not wanting to have. But for the start of this accident, started with the fact that Oldfield sent it in a corner number 3, and Orto kind of came to a stop with the way that he was entering the corner, and contact between those drivers and everyone else behind them, nowhere to go.
Take a look here at that contact you were just describing, and just, you know, obviously you want to try and pick up the positions early on here, just in case we go into the scenario of what we saw in the street stock race where everything gets spread out with a long green flag run. You want to make the passes while everybody's bunched up, but it kind of looked like, I don't know if the 84 misjudged where he was going to be, if he was going to try and tuck in behind the 71 there through the corner, or if he thought he could actually hold it down there on the bottom.
I think he thought that there was going to be space for him to descend it, and it was going to stick in the center of the corner, and it just didn't. It went straight, and the 71 was the break at that moment, hurting both those drivers. Brian Orto did come into the pits, just getting manual repairs done for the 71 machine, saving that fast repair just in case an engine gets blown. Other vehicles that are in the pits, Terry Bauman's going to actually be still in the pits, getting repairs done for these machines, and overall, that was just an aggressive move by the 84 machine, who is going to be using a fast repair, but we are green up front.
And I was under the assumption...
they're already wrecking! In the back half of the field.
Schwart in the 49, got a car upside down. That's the 15 of Sean Kerrigan up there in the middle of 3 and 4.
That looked almost extremely similar as it was Kerrigan. I believe that might have been... believe that was actually the 49 that made contact of Schwartz into Kerrigan.
Just going right down here into 1 and 2 on the initial restart, and yeah, almost kind of like net code there. I'm not quite certain that the front of the 49 was right to the back bumper of the 15. Of course, you've also got that undercarriage exposed on the back of these machines, so it was hard to tell from that camera angle.
No, there was definitely contact as that was Timothy Schwartz. Not really. I think he just came in with too much speed, not expecting the 15 to whoa up as much as he did, and the front bumper making contact with the rear left tire and lifting up the 15, which then caused a lot of other cars to have nowhere to go. And Oldfield was the ramp that got the 15 upside down.
Now, with going back green, we weren't able to look and see. Actually, Adam Huggins did not wreck with anybody. He just pulled his car to the infield and took it to the garage area. This is why Terry Ballman actually was smoking, as he just overcorrects up into the outside wall. So this was back during the first caution, but wanted to go back and see what happened to the 69 machine. So working our second caution of the evening here, Grant Wesley was able to get around Steve Spies when that caution came out. So he's going to be the leader when we go back green.
Yeah, and it looked like Spies wasn't able to get the launch that he wanted due to the fact that the caution came out so soon, because Wesley sent it in and was ahead, and it probably wasn't going to have the momentum once they got onto the backstretch. Caution came out so early that it allowed the 88 to be placed where he is now. We'll see if Grant Wesley can now start to pull away from the rest of the field as the field shrinks a little bit more. Green flag back out of the air.
Green flag comes out here on lap 7, and we do have one driver that we can add to a list of the fast repair machines. Bo Oldfield took on his fast repair. Terry Ballman still sits on pit road getting damage repaired, and Sean Kerrigan, who had to teleport because he was stuck upside down, he is now out of the race in that 15 machine. Looks like he'll finish in the 12th position.
As we're starting to see, they're a lot more fanned out here in the late models compared to the street stocks. Street stocks, they just stay in the middle. Here in the late models, they're really able to utilize all 3 lanes. And Oldfield, who had to use a fast repair, was all the way back in last place, has already moved up 4 positions.
All 3 lanes, which is why they are 3 wide back here. Mason Nichols on the bottom, Scott Shroyer in the middle, Monksgaard in the 44 up on the top side. They've kind of shuffled up lanes. They've taken a turn in the middle, taken a turn on the high side, taken a turn on the bottom, still 3 wide. Now it settles out to a side-by-side for the 4th spot.
Yeah, and I'm watching the 84 of Oldfield. He's got a lot of momentum coming into these corners, and he looks like he wants to set it 4 wide, but there's just not enough room for it to happen. And now Shroyer as well as Monksgaard trying to figure out where they're going to place themselves. So they're still side-by-side.
Yeah, Bo Oldfield's got a very fast race car, but the problem for him is at a dirt track, more than likely the lane you want to run, almost invariably there's going to be somebody in front of you running the same identical lane. Looks like Oldfield now all the way up against the wall trying to run the extreme outside line here, hoping nobody else will be there.
But the real car that's on the move, Mason Nichols, has moved his way all the way up to 2nd place, moving Spies back to 3rd, and this 55 machine is just running just slightly faster than Grant Wesley. The battle that we had during the street stocks, it might erupt once again.
He made my heart jump there through 3 and 4. I thought he was just going to clip the tire there in the center of that final couple of corners with the front end of his nose, but he did not. Again, really low there coming out of turn 4, but yeah, it's deja vu from the street stock race. It's the 55 trying to reel in the 88.
And they got to realize with the street stock advantage, the experience that they got compared to the drivers behind them, a lot of them really struggled to have that experience. They didn't show up for the street stocks. Our front 2, they were there. They were our front 2 for most of the race, and now with the experience of how the track might evolve throughout tonight's event, they can figure out, okay, at this lap, I should move up, or maybe a lap earlier because how fast we're running.
Right inside the cockpit there of the 55, and you just see the hands there. That's not steering the wheel, that is cranking the wheel to the right going into the corner.
Yeah, you're trying to get a little bit, a lot sideways, so that when you finally find your way straight, you straighten it out, so you just get a great launch to the center of the corner to the backstretch.
Brian Ordo started this race from the outside of the front row. We're watching him now in a 3-way battle for 7th. Brian Hogue there in the 14, Tim DeSchwartz in the 49 right behind him. And then just behind them, also trying to enter into this battle, is the 073 of Steve Robbins.
Yeah, Steve Robbins, though, he's so far, I mean, this has just been a struggle for the 073 as he's got 3 cars in front of them, and then there's a huge gap to our front drivers where they're still 3 wide, and we're starting to get to that point of the race. We're about to get closer to the halfway marker where the track's going to evolve. Drivers going to have to figure out where they want to place themselves, but Nichols is there. He's within 2/10 right now of Grant Wesley.
Great battle back here, 3-way battle for 4th between Monksgaard, Spies, and Bo Oldfield, but back up here to the front, as you mentioned, Nichols is there within striking distance, and this is getting around the same period of the race where we saw that great back and forth of crossovers between Wesley and Nichols closing in on lap 20.
The issue of being the leader is you start to see the car behind you running a lane and you see them gaining quick, and then by the time that you move down, you've only got that speed for a lap or two, and then that grip starts to drift away, and then that car behind you, they start to find a different groove that's a little bit faster, and it's just a cat and mouse game right now where Nichols is winning.
Yeah, Nichols got a great run there off of turn 2, and now he's alongside Wesley going into turn 1.
And he's gonna get the run. He set himself up. He's been figuring out the exit of these corners so much better than Grant Wesley, who continues to drift up higher and higher. But there's the slide job, but the crossover move. Here comes Grant Wesley.
Crosses back down to the bottom. We'll see if the outside line might be able to prevail here for Nichols. No, instead he's going to cut it right down to the bottom. Almost literally took turn 2 straight onto the backstretch.
Yeah, talking about how during the street stocks, this was around the time that they were duking back and forth. They continued on once again, but it's going to be Scott Shroyer and Monksguard that are waiting behind them trying to run these drivers down.
But remember, the street stocks are able to take a little bit more of a beat in the late models, so they had the opportunity to maybe lean on each other in the earlier event. Here, I don't think they want to make contact with each other.
Complete opposite lanes, as you saw Wesley go all the way up to the wall, Monksguard all the way down to the tires. You got to be careful at both those spots because Wesley can obviously lose his spoiler, and but Nichols, he can lose his bumper.
The incredible thing about this as well, these guys continue to battle side by side. The gap between themselves and the third place car of Scott Shroyer, it's still kind of maintained about a second and a half. Shroyer's not really closing up.
Yeah, he's not closing up enough. He needs to start finding a different groove, maybe run, because he's running to almost dead center. Now he's going to be running pretty close to where Nichols is, and he's just losing too much momentum on the backstretch. I think it'd be much better if he was on the high side trying to carry that momentum there.
If we end up going green to the end, do we keep seeing this all the way to the checkers, or does it come down to when one of these two drivers ultimately make a mistake? As Wesley continues to run that top side, Nichols there on the bottom, and it looks like little by little that inside line is losing just a little bit more momentum.
You talked about how lap traffic might be something to watch out for. Also, during the street stocks, the car that was on the outside started bumping into the wall with about 30 laps into a run to 35 laps into the run. I'm expecting to see Wesley. He's got to get close to that wall, and he's got to be very nerve-wracking. He talked about not losing that spoiler. He could be losing it here probably the next couple of laps if he's not careful.
Yeah, for both drivers, it's about preserving a certain part of their race car. For Wesley, it's the spoiler. For Nichols, it's the splitter, or at least the front end of the race car there, as he's down close to those tires down that inside line of these respective corners. But now you're starting to see that 57 of Shroyer slowly but surely start creeping in.
Yeah, and Shroyer, he's able to really pick and choose and see where he wants to go. Right now, it looks like through 3 and 4, that's where Nichols is winning this battle. It's through 1 and 2 where we're seeing Wesley be able to cross at the middle of this line. Across that line that time by, that goes to Nichols, and it's looking like we stay side by side like this. Nichols might be in the better position, but as I say that, Grant Wesley got a huge run through 1 and 2.
We've got a car on pit road, the 71 of Brian Ordo. I don't know if he actually spun down towards the pit road entrance or what. No caution has come out, though. We also got a great battle that's been going on behind this battle for the race lead between the 5th and 6th place drivers of Bo Oldfield and Steve Spies, but this battle up here at the front's been too good to drop back for that.
Yeah, it went back. It looks like Ordo might have gotten in either into the fence or into the tires and has to come in. He was going to use a fast repair to get back out there, so 71, 2 laps down, and right now running in 10th position.
Things settled out, at least for the moment, up there at the front. Wesley holds off Nichols. Will now drop back to this battle for 5th. 84 of Oldfield on the top. 128 of Steve Spies on the bottom. These guys have been swapping that 5th position back and forth as Oldfield pounds the outside wall.
Yeah, that is not a good hit for the 84 machine, and that's just going to get worse and worse as the run goes on. Still trying to work that outside groove, but Oldfield has been just nagging and staying on the outside. I don't think we've really seen him come to the inside. Just every single time he enters turn number 1, he bangs the back end of the spoiler into the wall. He's got to be careful. Now dropping it to the inside.
You saw right there, it kind of looked like 2 or 3 times that right rear quarter panel was scraping on the outside wall. I thought that was going to lose him some momentum, but he still holds the 5th position over Steve Spies momentarily. And now that battle for the lead that was there, it's gone just like that. Nichols, who was all over the back bumper of Grant Wesley a couple of laps ago, he's now about a second and 2/10 back and fallen into the clutches of Scott Shroyer.
the moisture on the inside, it's completely gone, and Nichols is really, he's struggling to even feel comfortable to move up at all because he thought that this was the better place to be. But right now, Grant Wesley is showing the outside is where the speed is at, and right now you're seeing Nichols as well as Shroyer. They're trying to find speed, but they are not running down the leaders. They're just catching up to one another, and contact almost there between the 55 and the 57.
So if you're Shroyer, you've got to get around this 55 car as soon as you possibly can to then try going to work, find something different, and attempt to run down the 88 of Grant Wesley. Grant started on point in the street stock race, went on to win that event, had to roll off from third place here tonight for the late models, but looking for the sweep, and he's closing quickly on to 10 laps to go.
Nichols found something. He's turning in a lot more deeper, trying to get a better exit out of the corners, and it's working. He's just gained about 3 to 4 tenths, and also I think Grant Wesley might have just brushed the wall there. He's got to be careful in that 88 machine.
Yes, you are right. The 88 did get up into the wall there, so that's another thing is he's got to make sure that he keeps himself mentally aware of where he is as opposed to where the rest of the other drivers are behind, because at some point here you've got to just focus on hitting your marks and not worry about those drivers behind you in the interval you've got over them.
And right now, I mean, Nichols is getting so close to those tires, and it's been getting closer and closer. He's got to be careful, as it looks like Brian Orno has just parked it now in the infield, just watching the race on the back stretch. But this battle for second place, it's still lingering there. But the battle for the lead, it's still 1.1 seconds. And Nichols really hasn't been gaining anything these last couple of laps ever since Grant Wesley has brushed the wall. He hasn't touched it again, and he's not losing, but he certainly is gaining just a little bit more through that corner.
Wesley goes through 1 and 2. I want to find out where Tim DeSchwart and Steve Robbins are at, and they're going into 3 right now. So there's still about half, a little more than half a racetrack between Grant Wesley and the drivers on the tail end of the lead lap. So it doesn't look like traffic for the most part is going to come into play in the outcome of this race, as, my goodness, again, Nichols gets awfully close to the tires down there in the infield. Shroyer trying to go around the outside to take second place.
Yeah, Nichols through on the entry of 1. He brushes the grass right before he enters the corner, so it bounces him away from the tire, but it's also losing him time because how much he drifts up into the corner, almost drifting all the way up to Shroyer. And Schroyer's trying to find something, but the more they stay side by side, they're losing ground, and Nichols gets a little bit too out of shape there.
Yeah, that's going to lose him that second spot now. Shroyer had him cleared. Nichols was able to battle back, but that mistake going to have to put the 55 back on the attack once again. The gap is about 1.3 seconds between Shroyer up to Grant Wesley, and the laps continue to tick away. 3 to go at the line for the 88.
It's not looking good. Right now, Shroyer needs Wesley to get into the wall, make a bigger mistake than what he's been doing so far if he wants a chance to run down the 88 machine, because there's just not enough time. He needs another about 3, maybe 4 more laps than what there is right now.
See right there, you can see the 57 just barely in the shot. He's about 5 car lengths, I should say, behind Grant Wesley. That's not close enough, as we're at 1.5 laps to go. Grant Wesley looking for the weekend sweep here at Charlotte. He's just 4 more corners away as the white flag is displayed.
Grant Wesley, all he has to do, stay close, but don't hit the wall. If anything, race a little bit conservatively. You got time, you got space. Through 1 and 2, he's good. Coming into 3 and 4.
What a night here at Charlotte. He won the street stock race from the pole, started 3rd tonight for the late models, but he will sweep here at Charlotte.
A fabulous run for himself, and everyone else staying pretty clean to where they're at. The battle for 8th place still going on. Tim DeSchwart, he's trying to hold off there, Steve Robbins, and will do so, as that was the battle for 8th place. But Grant Wesley, another great race for himself. Once he got to the lead, no one else really had a chance except for Mason Nichols there in the middle of the race. Once we were starting to see the grooves changing, and really once you started losing too much ground, the track got so slippery, there wasn't a lot of moisture on the track. That's when we started seeing Nichols really struggling to find any type of speed.
And it almost came down to back-to-back 1-2 finishes between Wesley and Nichols. And it's interesting, too, because, you know, entirely different cars, but the storyline of the race seemed somewhat similar, where when Nichols was able to find something and get up there to Grant Wesley, Wesley was able to counter it. When he did, he was able to pull away from Nichols. So it's kind of ironic that we had almost the identical same thing happen in 2 different races with 2 different types of cars.
I also think that it was a little bit of help from seeing the street stocks, right? So we saw during the street stocks that it was the inside dominant, and then we started seeing that it was a little bit of a about the same for the inside and the outside through the middle of the race. And then at the end of the race, that outside groove was just so much better. And that's where Grant Wesley kind of just waited for that time when the outside was going to be the best. And that's when he started to pull away. And that's when Mason Nichols wasn't able to evolve throughout this race. And really that last half is where the 55 was just losing so much ground.
Well, Wesley will finish this race with the win. Nichols will finish in third. The meat and the sandwich there, Scott Shroyer going to bring it home in the second position. Scott Monksgaard will bring it home with the top 5 and fourth, and pole sitter Steve Spies will bring it home fifth. Sixth was Bo Oldfield, Brian Hogue in seventh, Tim DeSchwart eighth, and Steve Robbins in ninth. Those were the drivers that finished this race, all on the lead lap. Brian Ordo, as you mentioned, watched the rest of the race from pit road. Will finish in the 10th position. Sean Kerrigan, Adam Huggins, Terry Bauman, and Michael Massey all finished this race behind the wall. So down to pit road we go for some post-race interviews. For the second time tonight, we're going to talk to Mason Nichols. Hey Mason, it's Seth and Sam up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios again. Got us?
Yes, sir. How's it going?
Well, man, I mean, we saw you do good in the street stocks. You did really well here tonight in the late models as well. But what were some of the key differences you found between the street stock car and the late model car with how you were able to approach Charlotte here tonight?
Well, I found the bottom for me was faster. I just couldn't find what Scott and Grant had found on the top. Just wasn't there for me. We done exactly what we said we was going to do in the last one. We moved one spot. Problem was we went the wrong direction.
Yeah, I mean, Mason, it was overall a great race. Saw you coming back with a head of steam there in the middle of this race. And like you said, there really was struggle to find the moisture, it looked like, for yourself. Was there anything else maybe you could have done there for those final about 15 laps?
Man, I thought about the middle, but I wasn't 100% sure. So I thought, well, I'll just ride this out and see what happens. And, you know, there at the first, I got shuffled back. As soon as we run in turn one, I had a bad deal there. But we come back, and I think we done all right.
Well, Mason, great runs for you here tonight at Charlotte. Nonetheless, second in the street stock race, third place here in the late models. For one final time, we're going to turn the microphone over to you for some shout-outs.
I just want to thank everybody at RTG and you guys and my boys Carson and Bodie. They're watching you guys on the internet right now. So other than that, hey, I appreciate all you guys.
That's Mason Nichols, third place here tonight in the late model race at Charlotte. Congrats on a great run there, Mason. Congrats on a great weekend overall.
Thanks, guys.
And let's see if we can get our second place finisher here, Scott Shroyer. I'm not certain we actually have him available. Doesn't look like we do, so if we end up getting the opportunity to talk with him, we will. So for now, we're going to go back down to Victory Lane, where Grant Wesley is there for the second time tonight. Hey Grant, it's Sam and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios again. You got us?
Yes, sir.
Man, you did it. You went 2 for 2. You complete the sweep here tonight at Charlotte, but we were talking about how this race played out very similar to the race we saw earlier with the street stocks, where you got out in front early, you had the 55 closing on your back bumper, but then all of a sudden you found something on that top side and were able to pull the gap away again.
Yeah, that's once again, you know, the bottom was working really good. I figured Steve Spies was going to be a little stronger than that. I thought he was going to be pretty good where he was starting, and yeah, but I was able to make that bottom work and get around him. And then I seen his deja vu. You know, here comes Mason again. And I knew whenever he got there, we were going to have to throw some sliders back and forth again. And but I figured I tried the top. I started walking it up the hill just a little bit more each corner, just kind of testing the waters a little bit. And I knew 1 and 2 was going to be good up top. I just didn't know about 3 and 4. And so I went all the way to the very top in 1 and 2, and then I had to kind of fine tune 3 and 4. I had to not be all the way at the top, and I was able to kind of gap him a little bit, and then from there on out I just put it up on the wall and had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, you were up so close to the outside of the wall, and we saw you brush it a few times. After brushing the wall, how much was it affecting you to the end of the race?
I never made hard enough contact to even it just barely maybe scratched the paint. I don't think I got any damage throughout the race.
Well, Grant, great weekend for you here tonight, completing the sweep here at Charlotte. Congratulations on going back-to-back here with the street stocks and the late models. One final time, we're going to hand the microphone over to you for some shout-outs.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the owners here, Terry Bauman, Sean Prime, and David Cannon. They do a lot of hard work keeping Rolling Thunder Gaming going on both the NASCAR 2003 and the iRacing side. So appreciate them giving us a great place to race. My fellow admins, Brian Hogue and Brian Ordo, I'd like to thank you guys once again for doing the broadcast. We really appreciate it. And my teammates at XFM.
That's Grant Wesley. He completes the sweep here tonight, does a couple of burnouts, and sits in victory lane twice here at the Charlotte Dirt Track. Congratulations there, Grant.
Thanks, guys.
Well, it's not very often that we end up heading into a season finale not really knowing who is in that championship battle. We're going to be finding out the same time you guys do next week. But, you know, no doubt about it here tonight. This was an incredible couple of races. And, you know, race-wise, you can't ask for anything better than the type of dirt track racing we saw here this evening. It's going to be interesting to see, though, how the events of tonight's race play out into who's in that championship battle next week.
Yeah, I mean, especially looking at where some of these drivers ended up that we presume are still up on top of the board for points, it's going to really change up some things with Grant Wesley running so well, Scott Shroyer showing up here in the late models, and also Timothy Schwartz running as well as he did in the street stocks. I think both of those instances are going to be helping both those drivers points-wise, but next week, going to be interesting to see how they evolve.
And it looks like we do indeed have our second place finisher here, Scott Shroyer. So we're going to talk with him. Scott, it's Seth and Sam up here in the Flatout Racing Network Series. You got us?
I do. Go ahead.
Man, second place run here tonight. You were able to get around that 55 for second place. What little more do you think you needed to be able to get up there with Wesley and make it a fight for this win?
Actually, I think about the last 5 laps I was gaining on him. I found something there about 10 laps to go, and finally got around Mason, and then was able to pick a clean line that I wanted. And I think we were gaining on him there just a little bit. We just ran out of time, but you know, that's our fault. We had some trouble there in the heat race, and it kind of put us back in you know, 6th or 8th in the start and in the feature. So that's the nature of the beast.
Yeah, Scott, we saw a lot of drivers trying to make that inside groove work all race long. We saw during the heats a lot of drivers making contact with the tires. How much tension is there trying to run on the inside and trying to be fearless when you're running so close to those tires?
It can get nerve wracking. There's no doubt about it. I mean, there's a couple times there I kind of was running the bottom there first part of the race, and you know, there's a couple times there I thought I was going to clip the tires, but you just got to make sure you hit that mark every time, and if you don't, boy, you're in trouble.
Well, Scott, congratulations on a great run here tonight with the late models, bringing it up runner-up here at Charlotte. We're going to turn the microphone over now. Let's do some shout-outs.
I'd like to congratulate Grant there on the win, and Mason there. We had a real good race there, and Budweiser, of course, Dirt Slinging Outlaws, 3D Racing, One Shot Cycle Recycling, Schwartz Speed Shop, RTG, and you guys here at Flatout. We appreciate it very much.
All right, that's Scott Shroyer. Brings it home P2 here tonight under the lights at Charlotte Dirt. Congratulations on a great run there, Scott, and we look forward to seeing how you finish out the season next week.
Thanks, guys.
All right, and as we stated, you know, tonight was the table setter. It's going to be the race that determines what the championship battle is going to be next week, and Flatout Racing Network is going to have the coverage. We're going to have a champion crowned in the street stocks. We're going to have a champion crowned in the late models. It should be a good one.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to see how these drivers are going to be reacting for that championship race and who's going to be showing up next week. It is going to be a blast to see how these drivers react. I mean, every single week, you never really know if it's going to be a blowout from someone or close racing action all race long like we saw here today.
Well, a couple of long green flag runs in the respective races here this evening at Charlotte, but Grant Wesley brings it home. He won in both events, completing the weekend sweep. Great racing here tonight. Sam, I appreciate you joining me in the booth for it.
Always a pleasure. Can't wait for next week and more dirt racing.
Absolutely. Championship trophies will be raised next week, and we will have the coverage here on the RTG side for their dirt series in street stocks and late models. For Samuel Dyer, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Friday evening as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.